Happy Thursday. It is Therapy Thursday. It is Therapy Thursday. This afternoon, or evening, I have some black coffee, black sweet coffee, because I don't think I had some coffee today, and I just felt like I missed the coffee. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Dr. Triphi Wallace, Dr. Triphi, from the lovely island of Dominica, although I live and practice in the state of Georgia, in these United States. And every Thursday evening, about this time, I show up to teach and to share strategies, tips, telephone calls, telephone calls, yeah, and techniques to help us think better so we can feel better, so we can do better. Now, yesterday was a very wonderful day. Lovely day for many people. Yesterday was a fabulous day. It was Valentine's Day. Jackie, for a lot of people. And a lot of people had a wonderful day. Some people had a miserable Valentine's Day. Some people had a miserable Valentine's Day. Tonight, I want to talk about divorce. And I'm talking about divorce because as you listen to me tonight, you will hear you will hear how we can stop what's happening. And what's happening is close to 50%, very close to 50% of all marriages in the US in particular end in divorce. Very close to 50%. I mean, can you, like, seriously think about it? One out of two couples that gets married spends their money, hmm, spends their money. They invite everybody. They invite grandma. They invite their boss, their workers, their co-workers. They invite the community to come, spend all their little money on a big shebang. They might have kids, little kids. They might have a business together. They might have a house together. And they split up. We split up. Mm. I was married for 7 years before I initiated a divorce. Yeah. Now, who starts off a marriage wanting to get divorced? I don't think many of us do. Now, I know if you're looking for a sugar daddy, like Sprinkle Sprinkle, if you're looking for a sugar daddy like Sprinkle Sprinkle, you might not really care. Yeah, because you might have factored that in. But most of us, when we marry, we want it to last. So tonight I'm talking about divorce. Something that when a lot of us go through that experience, we experience a lot of shame. I think there's a sense of failure that shows up for many people when they divorce. There's grief and loss and pain. So I already know a lot of people were suffering yesterday. So tonight, let's talk about divorce and let's see where we're making these horrible mistakes. They are horrible when they cause so much negative consequences for us. Okay. So listen to this. In 2021, this is what? This is early 2024. The Centers for Disease Control, which is the CDC, in 2021, according to their statistics, in the US, a total of 689,308 divorces occurred. And in that same year, 1,985 and 72 marriages occurred. So that means right about like almost 50%. Yeah. The research shows it about 46. 46 is like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's practically one out of two, yeah, is getting a divorce after we've invested so much time, so much effort. I mean, before you even get the ring, y'all, some of us go through a lot of grief even to even get the ring, right? And then once you get the ring and you say yes, 50% ends in divorce. And we're talking about that 50% is for first marriages because the numbers increase when you get to second and third marriages. So, I mean, what is this about? Yeah. Of course, far more people, like I just said, get married every year than get divorced. And most of us, like I said, we're trying to create a romantic relationship that lasts. We're trying to enjoy love, sweet love. Most of us are trying to accomplish that. But we're hitting roadblocks. And that beautiful experience that offers so many of us a sense of stability, the idea that you have somebody, your person who's there for you each and every day. Yeah, you had a hard day, you come home, you have somebody there to talk about it with, to process your feelings with. Hmm? We lose that. We lose that. Okay. Now, here are some interesting statistics about divorce. When do couples divorce most often? Well, the research is showing that right about 8 years in is the average length of time of a marriage before it ends in divorce, if it's going to end in divorce. How long does a typical divorce, like the process, take? And about how much does it cost? In the US, you're going to have to spit out about 7,000 bucks on average. And that's tiny for the amount that you're going to have to pay if you've got kids, if you've got property to separate, if you've got 401ks and pension plans. So it's expensive and it can last maybe from what, 3 months, yeah, to several years. There are some people who are in lengthy divorce processes that takes years and years and years, and time and stress and confusion and uncertainty because you don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to end up. And even though most people file what's called a no fault divorce, which means you can just dissolve the marriage, if you want to in the US, and you don't have to show necessarily that your partner did a certain thing to justify it. Even though most people do it like that, it is a painful, heart-wrenching process. Now, here's the thing. We fall in love, we say, and eventually we marry. Mhm. And something happens that I'm not sure many of us are prepared for: conflict, disagreement. Somehow, many of us, I think, have gotten it into our heads that you're not supposed to argue, you're not supposed to disagree. And when that shows up, I'm not sure we have the skills necessarily to navigate it. There's some of us, based on our personality, disagreement feels very painful. It hurts a lot. There are some of us with low sensitivity for emotional pain, and we can really go into a state of distress. But we all know this. But I think we get shocked when it starts to manifest in the relationship. Every couple is going to experience conflict. Hmm? And when you look at the research across the board, yeah, you have some typical problem areas. Yeah, like trust and jealousy, people's personality, how we use our money. Yeah, stuff like that. And I'm going to go into a list of some of the main problems that show up that decapitate our relationships. It seems as if all couples around the world, they kind of fight about the same things or very similar things. Yeah. When I mentioned personality and the fact that there are some of us whose the way we feel, the way we experience ourselves, conflict is highly destabilizing for us. Yeah. There is a model called the Big Five model of personality. And it says that Most of us, our personality can be broken down into about five categories. And you can use the acronym OCEAN or CANO to remember it. Okay. So the first one is conscientiousness. What does that mean? It's whether or not you are a disciplined person or a thoughtful person, a careful person, versus somebody who's impulsive and disorganized. So think about it. If I marry someone who is very disciplined, very careful about how they spend their money, and me, every sale I want to buy. Yeah, everything I see on Amazon I want to buy. Nothing's wrong with that. That's just my style. Now, when the two of us meet, we clash. A is agreeableness. So think of the acronym CANO, yeah, or OCEAN. I'm going down using CANO. So the first one is conscientiousness. The second personality trait that most of us hold is agreeableness. Well, there's some people who are very eager to help. There's some people who are very trusting, but there's some people who are very suspicious, very uncooperative. We might call it uncooperative, but there's some people who need a lot more information and justification before they go along. And some of us are very quick. If somebody says, yeah, let's go do this, we're like, okay, let's go. And the other person will give you 20 reasons why they will not go. What if you meet what if you meet somebody who's your complete opposite or who is very different than you on that personality trait? The third one, N, is neuroticism. What does that mean? That means there's some of us who are very anxious in personality. We're worrying about lots of things, or we're very pessimistic. We tend to look at things and we're like, we don't expect much to come from that. On the other side, there are some of us who are very calm, very confident. Yeah, we go straight ahead without questioning much, and we don't feel a lot of anxiety about new experiences. O is openness to experience. There's some of us who are, it's got to be like this every day. We do not like you just coming up and just putting our lives in disarray. We don't like your spontaneity. We want order. We want regularity. And the other person might just be bursting if they're if they're having to act in that kind of routine, practical way. They love to use their imagination. They're ready to get up and go. They're just reading something in the on Instagram, and they're like, "Oh, that's a fantastic idea. Let's do this." And you're like, can we do some research? Can we plan? What? You know what I mean? And then E is extroversion. Extroversion. There's some of us who are reserved. We take our time. We're thoughtful. We need our space. We need quiet time to become energized. And there's some of us who we need other people. We need activity. We need to be socializing. We want to be out there doing things for us to feel energized. Now, these basic personality traits, I bet you just heard yourself as I described them. Now, when we marry, perhaps our person is not very similar to us. There are actually some theories in relationship uh, theory, relationship therapy, that suggests that there's a part of us that actually looks for that opposite side, that opposite way of expressing and experiencing life to complement us. And while we might be drawn to it in the beginning and we're very excited that here we are with this calm person and we prefer our routine, but this person comes in like a storm, like a whirlwind in our lives. And they're just so imaginative and creative and they want to do stuff. We're like, ooh, we get caught up in it initially when all of the beautiful oxytocin is flowing, yeah, and the dopamine and the feel good hormones are flowing because we've met somebody we're very excited by and attracted to. Initially, we might be blown away by it, but the fact that we have to continue to do it like that with this person over time can become very overwhelming for some of us. And the same thing that you fell in love with your person for, you might come to resent them for. Hmm? You might get overwhelmed that they're so generous and they're so kind when you are used to watching your pennies and being very cautious about who you share your time with. Yes? So sometimes over time, and again, especially when the initial infatuation subsides, last week I said, which it must. Your brain cannot stay high, essentially, forever. Okay? Things are going to happen. You're going to come upon stressors in your life, in the relationship, and that high feeling, it's going to dissipate. So, while sometimes we say we become very much like our partners over time, yeah, sometimes that happens because one person is making adjustments and they're compromising and they're learning more about the other person and they're learning to kind of say, okay, I'll try it your way, I'll try it your way, and both people do that, and you have a kind of, well, we become a lot more like each other over time. But that is based on personality, because some of us will not make a lot of effort to understand the other person's way much. Not if we think that our way is the right way. Yeah? Not if we think that it is better to be calm and conscientious and thoughtful, yeah, than to be excitable and to like a lot of fun. Hmm? So the thing is, our personalities, for the most part, that ocean, it stays stable throughout most of our lifetime. So sometimes in the beginning, we make a big effort, like I say, to go along with the new person and what they're bringing. But then our personalities, which again, that ocean is stable, if we're not willing to make adjustments and to learn new habits or new things, if we've got what's called a fixed mindset, where we're like, I am not willing to do too much extra than how I am right now, hmm, versus a growth mindset, which is curious about new things, which is your new person is coming into your life and you understand that a new person must bring new things to you. So you're going along and you're willing to adjust for the sake of the relationship. Listen, that's where we hit the 46% of divorce in our long term committed relationships. That is where we hit the one in two, essentially, is divorcing. So, what are some of the biggest conflicts that show up in our long term relationships? And when you talk to people who've been divorced, you start hearing these themes. These themes. So I'm going to start with this one. Number one, career choice. Did you ever think about that? So the CDC said that for almost half of the people that they surveyed, 46% mentioned the career that their partner was involved in, and not just the career, but how that person was working. Was that person working enough? Were they working too much? There are some people who get very frustrated that their partners are working too much, because if they have a high need for connection and physical touch or quality time, they're missing out on that. They're missing out on that. And that can feel very painful for some people. Very painful. Here's another one. Number two, parenting differences. Parenting differences. I am permissive, as in, you know, we can bend the rules. Our child does something and you on the other side, you're saying they need to go in timeout. And I'm like, why are you so hard on him, on her? Parenting differences is a huge factor in the seeds of unhappiness between couples. Or you might have one parent who's an authoritarian. Everybody must do as I say, no, do it like this and only this. And the other person is more nurturing, or what's called authoritative, where they allow the child to make their mistakes and to learn by natural consequences. Somebody who's authoritarian is going to look at that and say, that's terrible parenting practices. This child, you're going to quote unquote spoil this child. This is not going to work. And they can get very frustrated. Or you have some parents who are just like very nonchalant and neglecting, really. So, depending on your style and your partner's style of parenting, if you are very different, it's a setup for divorce. It's a setup for a lot of pain and discomfort in the relationship. Here's another one: division of household labor came up as a huge factor. So if one person in the relationship is feeling like they're doing all the work, I'm working very hard, I'm working too hard, I'm doing too much, I'm working outside the home, and I still when 4:30 hits, a new schedule starts for me because I'm the only one. If I feel like I'm the only one having to deal with the kids and their homework and prepping them for school tomorrow, when both of us work, a lot of pain and discomfort. So, the CDC says that women, especially, women in particular, who are partnered with spouses who are more traditional, who, we many of us grew up with a model where the male person in the relationship was the primary breadwinner and the mother stayed home. But then times changed and women started going out to work, but many models didn't really follow suit. So the woman went out and worked an entire day at work and came home and took over cooking and took over caring for the kids. In families with that structure, you can have one person who begins to feel very overwhelmed, exhausted, tired, and the research says having less sexual desire. Let's be practical. Let's be logical and realistic. Who, having had this experience of feeling exhausted, tired, pulled every which kind of way, is not feeling overwhelmed at the end of the day? Who is not going to be feeling a little resentful, perhaps? Who is not going to be feeling relaxed if they're feeling like they're being stretched here, there, and everywhere without much support? Okay? So, I mean, if you think about it, if you got a doctor who's on call 24/7, like you see that happening with residents in training a lot, where they're on call, like days and days and days in a row, that person's got to be hyper vigilant, on high alert. You know, I learned recently that many people in law enforcement, when they take their break, right? Say they've been working 4 or 5 days in a row, it takes a good 24 to 48 hours to decompress, right? To release your work stress enough to get back to yourself, to become present again to yourself. And so, if you have a couple where one person is feeling overwhelmed, yeah, no, we start having uh, sexual problems because one person is not as tired and is ready to go, and the other person is overwhelmed, tired, stressed out. They start, I got a headache, no, and we set a lot of unfortunate things up with that. Relationships with family, friends, other people, in laws is another big problem, another big stressor. Yeah. One person might feel you're spending too much time, too much money, too much of the relationship resources on your family, or you're going out too much with your friends, or they might not like whomever. And when that clash happens, it's very painful. It's very painful if that keeps happening over and over and over again. There's some people who just cannot take it anymore. Finances, I mean, that one is to be expected because if we're not bringing in enough finances to support this family, our basic needs are not being met. And when our basic needs are not being met, we become highly anxious. Highly anxious. There are people who will hurt each other in a prison setting where the resources are limited over a little packet of ramen. You'll get hurt because it's a survival issue. It feels like a desperate situation. And our stress tolerance gets lower. We cannot, we are not as patient anymore. We become more irritable, more resentful. Habits and health choices. Oh, how many people have broken up because one was drinking too much, or one went back to smoking, or one gained too much weight because they didn't work out, or they stopped eating in a particular way. Hmm? And the relationship, I mean, the attraction, the desire for the other person gets eliminated for many people, for many people. Yeah. Overspending is another. Overspending. How many of y'all? I don't mean to put you on the spot tonight, but how many packets do you have in the boot of your car from Amazon that your partner doesn't know about? How much? How much do you have stored away somewhere that your person does not have a clue about? And then they find out and they feel what? Totally betrayed. And it's very hard for a lot of people to reset and to talk their way through that kind of betrayal. I mentioned sex. This is unavoidably an important area. It's something that must be discussed if you're going to get married to somebody. You need to talk about what feels good for you when it comes to frequency. Everybody's different. So your number might be very different than your person's number. Hmm? Quantity, quality, how often, we're doing this. These things need to be talked about. And a lot of people move into marriage without having even thought necessarily about that for themselves. Yeah. And so we come into marriage and you're twice a week and I'm 5 times a week. What? Somebody starts to feel hmm, as if they're being shortchanged. And somebody starts to feel as if they're being put upon because we did not talk about it before we made such a very important, life changing decision to marry. Fundamentally, we have communication problems, which is a big factor. 63% of people who got divorced in that 2022 survey, they said that if only they had had a better understanding of the kind of commitment a marriage was, it would have helped them avoid divorce. And more than half of them said if they had understood their partner's value system, if they had understood that their partner, when you go down that ocean list, if their partner was more spontaneous than them and needed more stimulation, that would have been very helpful for them and they might still be together. Now, that personality stuff, when you come down to it, A big problem is the individual person and their belief system and their personality traits and their style of communication. And if they have or they don't have a pre existing mental health condition, all of those things will destabilize a relationship. And I don't care how in love you think you are, if you're not paying attention to this, you're setting yourself up. And when we're young, we can make those mistakes. When we're younger, we can make those mistakes. But there must come a point where, if you've definitely had at least the experience of divorce before, that you do something in a different way, that you educate yourself the way you have to study to take a driver's license physical exam. You got to study, you got to do a written exam, and you got to do a physical, practical exam. But do we do this for marriage? There are some religious organizations, like the Catholic Church, I know, does engaged encounter. Is that what it's called? Engaged encounter, where you do have some of that work. You do have the opportunity to do some of that work. Um, there's also kind of like the premarital, maybe 3 or 4 meetings you have. But I don't know that the kind of process is enough to dig deep. I think the engagement encounter program and marriage encounter, for those people who have gotten married, those are fabulous programs because they do dig deep and they allow the couple to do the work that needs to be done, y'all, because you came from different homes with different experiences, different values, different expectations. Just because I'm looking at you and you can see my face and you can see my eyes and you like what I look like, nothing to do with what's going on in here and my personality and my habits. And those things reveal themselves over time. They can only reveal themselves over time, as we move through different situations. And so, what then? What then? What then should we do? So, according to Psychology Today, here are some habits of healthy marriages. Number one, there's a friendship. There's a friendship. That's the base. That's the foundation of the relationship, of the romantic relationship. And it's not as if you have to be best friends, but you have to like your person as a human being, or else leave it alone. If all you can feel or see with another person is the physical attraction piece, and you don't like the person, you might like their body, but you mightn't like them and their personality. Ouch. Ouch. Over time, it's just going to keep grating on you more and more and more. Number two, create an identity. So create an us, yeah, a new identity. There's you, there's me, there's us, our relationship, which is the third component, like a third entity, like a new thing. And have an idea of what we like to do. We do this. This is us. This is us. And that us is about what both people enjoy. Yeah. Compatibility. Compatibility is about shared values or similar values, like a level of understanding and acceptance about the other person's difference. Yeah. How, their particular nature. Yeah. But the things we believe in common, the details might be different about how we show that or demonstrate our values, but fundamentally, we believe that you ought to be kind. Fundamentally, we believe in communicating with a person we love. Fundamentally, we believe in saving our money. Fundamentally, we believe in being faithful to each other. Fundamentally, we believe that an open relationship is better, but agree, we agree on these big, very important issues, or else we're setting up conflict on top of what is just natural day to day living conflict. But these are so important that they will destabilize any relationship. You have to be willing to try new things that your partner says they're passionate about. You got and that's where communication comes in, because before we commit to a marriage, these things should have been discussed and explored. Hmm? Yeah. And how do we do that? We engage in open and honest conversations about everything, how we spend our time, about our sexual intimacy, how we spend our money, hmm? How we use our space. Because one of us might like a lot of noise, we need our music at full blast, and the other person might be needing quiet time more than the other one. So those things must be communicated. It cannot be just my body likes your body. You can do it like that if you want. I mean, you have every right to do it like that. But boy oh boy, if we refuse to communicate and talk about things that in our minds make us seem vulnerable or feel vulnerable or make us seem weak, we don't want to talk about feelings. Yeah, we pay the price. And it doesn't have to be that way, because you've got to expect, number six, that there are going to be moments of conflict. There just must. Number one, we need that conflict actually in the relationship. The relationship is doing its job when conflict shows up, because conflict is there to help us to grow. Conflict is there to help me push myself a little bit and step out of my comfort zone to get closer to my partner, to create that new intimate thing we're building together. It cannot be that I stay the same if I marry. No. What is that? That's a fixed mindset where I say, I'm just, what? You mean I'm not experiencing any new thing based on my interaction with my partner? Yeah. Another thing to do is to focus on celebrating your partner, because all of us are looking for acknowledgement and significance and a sense that we're worthy. And I think that's one of the biggest purposes of a long term relationship, to help your other person feel good so they can bloom and grow. So celebrate your person's success so that they can reciprocate. Hmm? If we focus on the other person, the theory is the other person will reciprocate. Yeah. I know a lot of us, we're like, well, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. They didn't do that for me. I'm not going to do that for them. But often we can trigger the other person into reciprocating when we go ahead and take a step forward. Respect the other person's moods and their personality and their difference, their individuality, their perspective on religion, on politics might be different than yours. And if you know that's going to be too much for you, that's what dating is about. To make your assessment of the other person and decide if your values line up enough and that they don't cause so much stress, huh, that you can proceed. But a lot of us, we make the decision to proceed knowing that we already have these areas where we are very different on. Mm? Plus, we don't want to respect other people's thoughts and feelings and opinions. We're setting ourselves and each other up. So work really needs to be done on the front end. On the front end, that's according to the research. The people who are divorcing are saying I wish I knew more about my person's values, like what was important to them, and that I didn't just brush it off. I think a lot of us, we just brush it off like we're just, oh, we think they'll change too. We think they'll become more like us and they'll surrender their values, who they are, for ours if we're very different. As we're talking about change, some people think that you shouldn't change. That's a fixed mindset. And that's impossible because you don't live in a vacuum. You don't exist in a vacuum. So thinking that your partner should not change is unrealistic. Everybody's going to change over time. In fact, we should be curious. I think curiosity about who my person evolves into as we get older, who I evolve into, because God forbid, I mean, how can I stay the same? Hmm? It's perhaps more about acceptance. Accept that your person will change over time, commit to going with the person's who they're becoming, yeah, and staying curious about that and flexible about that, so that those new things that show up, my person decides 2 years from now they want to travel the world, and they're adventurous, and you know that accept your person's going to change over time and be willing to continue the ride with the person as long as what they're suggesting we do is not legally wrong or ethically wrong or morally wrong. I think fundamentally, the big thing to remember is, I mean, throw out your unreasonable expectations of other people. And your expectations, I think, are unreasonable if you don't share them with the other person. You have every right to have your expectations, but bring it forward to your person so that it doesn't blindside them 6 months from now. So they're not fighting shadows because you're not communicating what your expectations are. If you expect your wife to stay thin and slim even after she's had babies, communicate that while you're dating so that they're not shocked when they have the baby and it's difficult for them to lose the weight, that you tell them that's the reason you dipped. It's an unreasonable expectation to think that your person should know how to make you happy. Unreasonable. That's called mind reading. Okay, you can't read your mind. And you shouldn't give your person that task. I think many of us do that as a way to get away from not communicating and not opening up our hearts. So we think we put the job on the other person and we say, you should know what I like. You should know, you should do this because you love me. No, tell me you prefer it when I do it like that because you enjoy it. Make it easy for your person. And I'm talking about that, that's bi-directional. That's bi-directional. Clear up your expectations of what you're trying to create in the marriage before you tell the person's child, come to the church with me, before you put a ring on their finger. And before you say yes to a person offering you a ring, clear up your expectations. You have a right to your expectations. And maybe they disagree, and maybe you're afraid that they leave because they disagree. But wouldn't it be better to just find that out like then and there so you don't waste your time and all that money for that wedding, you know? So let me take some of your comments. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you for joining me tonight. Happy Thursday, Jackie. Yvonne says, good evening. My lady, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. Happy Thursday, Princess. Bernice, good evening. Sandra, how are you? Good night to you. Bernice says, wow. Bernice says, so true. Natalia says, this is a great topic, Doc, especially for young married individuals like myself. You know what, Natalia? That's fantastic because we've got to get the information early on so we decrease the amount of suffering we endure because we don't have the information. Hmm? And there are many great books. Next week, I'm going to talk about two books that you've just got to read them. You've got to read them if you're going to create a long-term relationship. You have to read. You have to learn. You have a duty, a responsibility. If you think what you're creating is valuable enough. Yeah. Derek, how are you? Good night. Benny says there are things that should be expected. Things that should be expected. We need correct work. We need to work towards correcting the errors and move on because we are different people. Because start off with, we are human beings, so we are flawed. Start there. And I know that when we just meet each other, our brain does this thing. Like I say, seriously, you'll just know that it's brain chemicals making you think that the person can do no wrong in the first few months. Just like the first 3 months or so, you're just like, oh my God, like my thing, I'm seeing bluer skies and greener trees. Yes, it's not magic, it's brain chemistry. So know that and know that in a little bit you're going to start seeing things and you're like, yeah, until you do come to a place where you're like, okay, I accept that this is how this person is, this is that. But what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, what we're doing, what we're sharing together is so much more valuable than their flaws because I have my flaws too. Yeah. And no, we will clash. No, we will conflict. No, we will differ. But start off accepting the other person's right to be different. They ought to be different than you. How can your person believe everything you believe in the way that you believe it? Your values, your core values ought to be very similar, but the details are not going to be exactly the same, except if you just want to marry yourself. If you want to just marry yourself, just stay single. If they ought to be thinking exactly like you're thinking on every single thing for you to be happy, just stay single and leave the other person alone because it's a setup for a lot of pain. Okay? And relationships, Bernice, are valuable and worthy enough because we create so many beautiful things from out of relationships. I mean, the experience is so beautiful when we are willing to do it well. When we are willing to do it well and to use the relationship as a vehicle to grow, to even become better, and to help and to provide a platform, yeah, a safe space for the other person, your person, to get better too. Communication is the bridge. Communication is the bridge. We will get to compatibility if we can communicate. If I feel safe enough to tell you something that I feel vulnerable about, that's the beauty of creating a safe space in a relationship. And I need to be able to do that for 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. Ramona says, we had premarital counseling, but I don't think the right questions were asked. Also, it was coming from a particular perspective that perhaps we were not at a place to go deeper. Ish. You know, again, I think this has got to be like self-directed. The part about us, especially if we've been divorced before, about us being brave enough to express that if we're going to go deeper, if we're going to, yes, I would love to marry you, but I would feel better. I would feel more prepared if we went to a therapist together to see how we might get on the same page about things. Somebody who can help us go deeper to see where our childhood wounds, y'all, they show up in our relationships. They show up, they show up, they show up. In fact, many people believe, like I said, that a relationship, especially a safe, committed relationship, is a place for you to heal childhood wounds. But we have to know that so that we don't hurt each other even more. When that child part of us shows up asking to be helped or to be healed or to be, soothed and made stronger so that that wound can be released. Instead, what a lot of us do is we hurt the other person even more. We belittle them. We call them names. We tell them they're, oh, shut up, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. Toxic stuff that, I mean, except if you have a masochistic personality where you want to experience pain for you to feel good about yourself. And there are a few people like that. I mean, you will not do that for the rest of your life because it'll hurt too much. It'll hurt too much. And like I said, some of us on the ocean scale, our tolerance for emotional pain, man, the threshold is very low for some of us. It's just, it hurts a lot. And just because I'm not in my partner's body does not mean I need to just say what I want and do what I want. What are you creating? You don't love me if you're not willing to learn me. Yeah. Moisey, have a blessed evening. Miss Hamilton, Chair Charles, Jillian, do you say your name as Gillian or Jillian? Happy Thursday. Hi, Jan Jan. Jackie says, great topic. Thank you, Jackie. Ramona said, okay, Ramona, we just talked about you. You said liking the person is so underrated, Ramona says. I think in the end, my ex stopped liking me as a person, and that's a killer. That is, let me tell you, it's not going to work if you don't like your friend. And why would you make such a powerful, important relationship? Why would you create such a powerful relationship, such an important relationship with somebody you don't like? Liking their body cannot be enough. It's not enough. And even when we begin and we think we love the other person, that's not enough if you don't want to communicate what's on your heart and what's in your mind with your person. It's not enough. It's going to fall apart if you're not willing to learn the skills. This isn't luck. You don't come into the earth knowing how to be in relationship, even if you like the person a lot. No, you have to learn the skills and you have to have an attitude of being willing to be curious, investigate, to learn more. If they tell you they're feeling a certain thing, as opposed to shutting them down right away, to ask, all right, tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Let me learn more about who you are, what's happening inside of you, so I can see what I can do, because that's why we created this thing. I can see what I can do to support you, as opposed to belittling you or cutting you down. That's not a relationship. This belittling, cutting down, that's something else. That's not a relationship that anybody ought to be in. You thought they would change, Jackie. Chemistry flows, Bernice says. Bernice says, we are married for 36 years and counting, and you've been making it work. 36 years and counting, you've been putting in the work and making it work. Yeah. This is commitment. This is decision. This is choice. Yeah. So what I want to share now is, this is from an attorney. Yeah. It's not from a psychologist. This one is from an attorney. The person who, when stuff really goes to you know where, this is what the attorney says as far as what she thinks she's seen over time about how to make the relationship work, how to make it work, and how to make it feel good. This is her name is Holly Moore, and she's been an attorney for over 15 years, handling high profile divorces and child custody cases. Because, yes, the kids get thrown into the lump when we don't want to talk because our child part shows up and becomes, it goes into the way of behaving that it used to behave under stress in our families. That's why we have to create safe relationships so each other, both of us, can feel good about taking care of the child part. So she says love is never enough. Love is a powerful force, but love, that kind of feeling is a dynamic feeling. Like it's always moving around. Like we got to keep feeding it, or else it goes sideways if we don't feed it. Yeah. So how do you feed it? She says with love and connection. Love and connection. Staying connected to the other person, staying focused on the other person, with the other person, because one of our primary needs, one of our primary psychological needs is to belong, is to feel that I have my person. My person might be different. We might argue. We will argue because we're different human beings. Mm, we will have different thoughts and feelings, but that's my person. When it comes down to it, my person has my back. I'm a priority for my person. Number two, she says, a sense of significance. The other person must feel as if they're significant in your life. Now, think about it, y'all. Some of us have lower self esteem than other people because of our childhood. Yeah. So you might have to do a lot of reassuring to your person over time. Yeah. Because that part of them is going to show up in the relationship. You say something you didn't mean for it to hurt their feelings. They have a responsibility and a duty to bring it up to you in a respectful way, thoughtful way. Many of us have to learn that because we didn't see it in our families. Yeah. Many of us have to learn that and speak up and let us know, ouch, this hurt. Can you do it in a different way? And when they ask us to do it in a different way, for us, our pride, when it shows up, for us to manage that and to continue to create a safe space for the other person. Variety and uncertainty, because we are human beings. And that spark of love is going to thrive on new things and new experiences. If you go to predictability and boredom, and all we doing every day is we just going to work and then we come home and we sit down on this TV alone, we watching, somebody's going to get bored. Somebody's going to get bored with that kind of cycle. One of the reasons why psychologists recommend you create a plan to do an activity together at least once a week, or as best as you can within your schedule. You've got to do new things. Yeah, do new things together, learn a new skill together, learn a new language together, start watching a certain series on TV together, or whatever, Netflix or whatever, together that you all can look forward to and do together. Travel together. Yeah. Make a baby together if you haven't, because if you're not building new things together, as in, it's like the relationship, it needs blood, it needs energy, it needs input. It's going to go flat, it's going to go stagnant, and you're going to be looking at, do I even know this person? One of the things One of the things to remember is that even if you don't like your person, if you've set up a system within your relationship where we know once a week we're going on a date, every night we're praying, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is you set up in the relationship, even if you're mad at each other, you're going to go enjoy some good food together. You need that continuous, fresh input. If you go put it on a shelf thinking, yeah, that's my man, I ain't got to do nothing anymore, I got to the ring, or that's my girl, she good, she love me, she love my drawers. You know what I'm saying? She love my dirty drawers. Yeah, it's gonna fall flat because relationships are dynamic and they need constant energy and input. Yeah. So, uh, finally, finally, money, 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 money. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, we need stability. We need to know that our basic needs are being cared for in that union that we're putting in our time and our emotions. Hmm? So we need to create a stable situation. Yeah. So plan who's going to be the primary breadwinner. Are we both going to work? Yeah. How much do you think we need to be making together? Things like that. But create a space where you feel safe. Your housing needs are cared for. You can pay your bills together. Yeah, the kids can do what they got to do. That's what that is supposed to be about. As opposed to, yeah, we just there, and whatever will may come. Whatever will may come and the poor planning, yeah, you'll reap the rewards of that. Yeah. So I want to review something with you as I wrap up at 8:02. Most of us feel good in a stable romantic relationship where we feel worthy and we feel cared for and we feel valuable and significant and we feel like a priority to the other person. Most of us. And most of us are trying to create these long term relationships. But again, because we are human beings and we are flawed and we come from a variety of different upbringings, different experiences created and carved us out. When we meet each other, it's painful. There's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of differences, but it's what we do to navigate those differences that must show up. In fact, a relationship's job is to almost perpetuate conflict so that we can use those experiences to grow. We're supposed to be in conflict. The thing is, based on our individual personalities, some of us cannot do conflict well. Some of us were trained in families where when we saw conflict, somebody got hurt. So we're very anxious about that. Some of us, we grew up in families where you could speak and say whatever you wanted. Some of us grew up in families where everybody was yelling. So you have to mix that up, you have to match that. Yeah. And that requires a change, of course, to bring it to a level where, all right, we know each other's flow, or we know how to get to a state of equilibrium after the conflict. We have to know how to fight and how to repair the fight. Yeah. When it comes to your personality, when it comes to your personality or our personality, there are five categories. Hmm? You can use Kano. You can use Kano to help you to remember, or you can use Ocean to help you to remember. So I used Kano earlier. I'm going to use Ocean going up to help you to remember it. So everybody, we do that. We express those personality traits on a spectrum, right? So you might go left, I might go right, we might be in the middle. It's just bits and pieces of it. So there is a sense of openness to new experiences. How open am I to new experiences? Nothing's wrong with me, regardless of where I fall. It's just my style. And so now I have to teach the other person my style. I have to learn their style, and we have to try to kind of navigate and see where both of us feel as good as possible. That's what people mean when they talk about compromise. Doesn't mean you stop being yourself. It means, where do I give a little? Where do I take a little? Yeah. So openness to experience is about, some of us are very imaginative, very artistic. very adventurous. We like to travel. We like to go do things. We're in every class that that exists. We want to be in every group. But some of us are very practical. We like routine and we like to conform to. We want things in a certain way. Yeah, we want predictability as opposed to spontaneity. Yes. And then C, conscientiousness is about orderliness. I got a duty to do this. I must do the right thing. Yeah, some of us, it's got to follow a particular pattern. If the other person wants to be less, wants to be more, like loosey goosey with things, sometimes that highly conscientious person might start to look at their partner like, you're a bad person. You know what I mean? Like, like who did I marry? But the thing is, we've got to learn to accept the other person, like just accept it, and then we talk, we communicate about how we feel different and what we would prefer before we start criticizing the other person. We practice curiosity. So you're trying to learn more about the other person versus telling them just because their way is different and you don't like it and it doesn't work for you that they're, you know, okay. A is agreeableness. All of us have a sense of morality. Yeah, what is we're cooperative, some of us are modest, we're sympathetic. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, some people are very pessimistic, they're very uncooperative, they don't want to just do before they know everything about what it is they're doing. They're highly suspicious. And we have to navigate that. And then we've got extroversion. Extroversion is how much do I need other people? How much do I need to be out there doing things? Or am I charged up when I'm by myself watching my little Korean shows, which my kids know about me, right? And I feel good versus I need to go to the movies or I need to go to the mall. And how can we meet each other, a little bit so that one person doesn't feel like, oh, I guess I just have to watch my thing by myself then. And they can feel the pleasure of the person who likes to go out to the movie theater, sitting with them in the bed or lying with them in the bed, watching their little Netflix. Yeah. And then N is neuroticism. Some of us are highly anxious. We worry about everything. We want it to be just so. We want to know everything about what's going to happen first. Yeah. Very anxious. And then, whereas there's some of us on the other side who are very calm. We're confident. We're like, we don't know, but we already know we're going to be okay when we get there. What this is saying is in relationship, it's not about judging the other person. It's about accepting where your person is when the headiness and the high from the original infatuation starts to slip. Understanding your other person is different and you making a decision. I mean, you might have your do not cross lines, but if your person is not doing anything horrible, like illegal, unethical, immoral, mon cher, it's about their preference and their style and their personality. So you have to decide you're going to relinquish the whole relationship just because you don't like their style. You have a right to do that. But after you've invested all the money in the ring and the dress, mm, and you've had the 3 kids and the house and the mortgage and the 2 cars, it is in your best interest to do the work to learn how to navigate being with your person. And sometimes that means going to a therapist. Sometimes that means reading a few books. And I'll share 2 next week, Lord willing. All right. So I appreciate you all very much for showing up and sharing. Share the live tonight. Share the live. Like a lot of people were busy getting flowers yesterday and they don't like the other person that they're buying the flowers for. Busy going out. Yeah. And they can't have a conversation about something serious because they don't respect the other person and they think their way is the only way. Wrong. Because it can never be that way and make sense except if you're living in a, you're my father, I'm your child relationship. If that's how you like it, that's your business. If you want to be married to a child that you can tell everything to do and what they think doesn't make sense, if you want to be married to somebody you don't respect, that's your choice, but you're missing out. Okay? You're missing out. All right? That the purpose of relationships is to help us bloom and grow and become even better versions of ourselves. So if I'm coming into this with a person who's not willing to do that, and I did not express that expectation prior to, I am off. I have a responsibility to share with my mate when we start dating what makes me feel good, you know? What makes me feel good? Hmm? What I want, what I hope for, what I'm looking to create. Because it's your relationship you're creating, and you could create a relationship with 10 people. It's about who fits better. Like you watch The Bachelorette and The Bachelor. Yeah. Many of the people who get sent home, they could make good mates for The Bachelor. You're just going from the person that really, yeah, 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 yeah. You know, you like check, 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 check. You know? So this is my offering tonight, y'all. Um, Patricia says, yeah, we have to adapt in relationships. We have to adapt, or else just stay single. If you're not willing, if you're not willing to adapt in a relationship to your partner's requests or needs for what makes them feel safer, better, more fulfilled, if that thing is not costing you so much, mon cher for the English only speakers is my dear. Yeah, then be single. The single life is a beautiful life, you know, but it's really, some of us can become a little sociopathic. When when I say that, I mean like some of us don't really care about the other person that we're in a relationship with. As long as we're getting our needs met, we do not care about the other person. So we want to be a hero and we want them to be a zero. No, it's up to the person in the who's been forcefully put in the zero position to investigate their situation and make different choices. Yeah, but hopefully it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way if we prepare, if we plan, and if once we're in the relationship and it's been a while, because relationships by nature need reinvigoration. Any day you can wake up, any night before you go to bed, you all can decide to do your relationship in a different way so that both of you can feel fulfilled. Okay? So, my brother Anthony says, thank you. So insightful. You are very welcome. Happy Thursday. And Ramona says, if someone wants out, they will not accept anything you offer. Absolutely. If somebody wants out, no, there is nothing that you can say to stop a person who wants to leave. Yeah, I know in many marriages, I mean, most of us, most relationships don't just end like I wake up today and I decide that's it. You know, most relationships start ending over time. Over time. But before we get there, before we even say yes to marrying, it's in the dating stage that we have to practice. We have to do a good job of communicating our expectations and navigating that, negotiating that. Because even if I have an expectation, it doesn't mean the other person ought to necessarily fulfill my expectation. Maybe we can give and take a little bit and come to, again, that new thing, that new relationship we're building, which is separate from you and me, but it's, parts of you, parts of me. Yeah. And it's newness, like its own thing. All right. It's like a baby. Yeah, the baby is dad's DNA, mom's DNA, but a completely unique new thing. That's what a relationship is like. Completely new. Yeah. All right, y'all. Happy Thursday. Um, I hope you all have a wonderful night. Um, let's do our best. Let's do our very best if we are creating relationships that we intend to be long term and committed, yeah, and to last a lifetime. Let's do our very best, yeah. Um, Faida Shin said, what Ramona said is so true. You cannot stop a person who's decided they want out. It means they're not, they're done trying. And so many of us which I applaud that. I think that you ought to give your best before you say that's it, I quit. Um, Many of us try our best with people like that who mean to leave us. They mean to leave us, and we try our best. We buy them flowers, we buy them candy, we cry, we beg, we scream, we guilt trip them, we remind them of every good time we had and all that stuff. If they mean to leave, they're going to leave, and they have a right to leave because everybody's got a right, to leave or to stay. But that's why I'm saying hopefully we start from the beginning in the inception of the relationship, setting it up for success, setting it up for success. Okay. And that's going to take the bridge is always going to be communication because even if I have a mental health challenge, I have to be able to communicate that. And when I'm feeling not good, I need to be able to communicate that. I need to be able to, reach out for support, all of that. So I do think that communication is the bridge to compatibility. Yeah, it's the way we negotiate, it's the way we change things, it's the way we make it better, it's the way we get more of or less than. So I wish you all the best in your relationships. Yes, not to we've got to just let them leave because they have a right to leave. Thank you, Simone. Simone says, excellent live this evening, Dr. Triphi. All right, you all. Bonne nuit. Peace. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night. Okay? Nous allons parler une autre fois. We'll talk another time.